The Chronologue. Episode 8, A Conversation with Elon Musk. Mars, 2055. Dust-laden ventilation fans rumbled overhead in low, syncopated whirs, like a tired orchestra tuning up between movements. The chamber Jude Meridian had chosen for this conversation sat 3 decks below Sol Station Ares' main dome. Half laboratory, half canteen, and entirely improvised. Titanium ribs arched over scar-red basalt walls. A dozen patch panels glowed amber where solar storms had once fried the circuitry. Anemic gravity let flecks of iron-red dust drift lazily in the lamplight, making every gesture feel as though it came with a built-in echo. A battered espresso machine hissed in the corner, leaking the aroma of synthetic beans into recycled air. Toward the far bulkhead, sealed behind diamond glass, a shard of obsidian black material hovered in magnetic suspension. Smooth, convex, and etched with impossible fractal grooves, as though someone had tried to carve sound itself into stone. Elon Musk arrived without entourage, helmet tucked beneath one arm, the other arm gripping a notebook whose pages are dense with equations and unspoken fears. Jude noted how, despite being 85, Musk's appearance and voice were startlingly young, like a man still in his 30s. He acknowledged Jude with a nod, equal parts greeting and caution, then took the stone bench opposite, letting the charged silence settle like a second atmosphere.
So, Elon, first sensations when you wake up on Mars each morning?
An itch in my teeth. The atmosphere's CO2 scrapes the nerves. The body keeps asking, why does breakfast taste like rust?
Not quite the breakfast in bed brochure.
Brochures sell heroism. Reality sells humility at -40 degrees.
Yet humility's never kept you from building cathedrals out of rocket fuel.
Cathedrals are fine, but Mars demands monasteries, quiet rooms where you catalog every way a person can die before noon.
Sounds uplifting.
Low-gravity uplift, yes. Jump too high, crack your helmet on a ceiling girder, and the colony gets free confetti.
Is that why the maintenance bots are wearing soccer helmets now?
Exactly. Last week one tried to polish the ceiling vents and head-butted a pipe. We're still combing coolant out of the algae farm.
A faint tremor rattled the cup in Jude's hand, sending micro-ripples across the viscous espresso. The station's seismic dampers compensated a beat later. Jude's gaze shifted to the suspended shard. Electromagnetic coils murmured as they kept the relic hovering, like a held breath refusing to exhale.
That glow. I thought nothing down here was drawing power.
Power is relative. The shard writes its own utility bill.
Does it always pulse like that?
Only when it senses attention. Either an exhibitionist or a mirror. Take your pick.
I can taste metal. Static?
Static magnetism. Maybe the relic's version of goosebumps.
Jude's wrist recorder chimed, its sensors tripping on an invisible frequency he couldn't name.
It's logging sub-kilohertz harmonics.
Prime number intervals. Repeats every 72 seconds.
Like a breathing pattern. What keeps that fragment afloat? Physics or superstition?
Both. The coils keep it physically centered. Our superstition keeps it emotionally at arm's length.
Because you don't trust what it is or what it means?
Because I don't trust what it's turning us into. People who define progress by what they dare to hide.
You say that like a confession.
Confessions require priests. Mars only offers dust storms and long reflections.
Reflections are dangerous. Frontiers can stare back, or so I'm told.
Stare? They interrogate. Mars is a cosmic palindrome. You read forward into the future and discover the past spelling your name in reverse.
And what's spelled in reverse for you?
Inonognis, a reminder that signing big dreams means resigning certain comforts.
Is comfort the price of vision or the bribe that steals it?
Both. Vision without discomfort is just a screensaver.
An auto chef bot rolled past, humming an off-key rendition of a pre-singularity pop tune. Oops, low gravity did it again. Its speaker glitched, distorting Brittany into bit-crushed karaoke. Elon flicked a switch on his wrist pad. The bot spun in place, bowed theatrically, and trundled away toward the greenhouse corridor, still singing.
You program it to do that?
I program it to remind us we're ridiculous. Humor is oxygen. Without it, the colony asphyxiates on seriousness.
Hard to be solemn when your coffee machine whistles "Take Me Home, Country Roads" every time pressure drops.
Right. Low pressure, low pitch. Last month it sang in whale song until someone fixed the valve.
Speaking of fixes, is life on Mars living up to marketing?
It's everything the adverts left on the cutting room floor. The part where optimism fractures into careful paranoia.
Paranoia that what exactly?
That the planet isn't inert. That time on Mars loops like a Mobius echo. That someone, or something, curated these deserts long before we arrived.
You're speaking of conspiracies.
Histories possibly. Conspiracies are just histories with poor public relations.
Poor public relations can start wars.
Or prevent them. Every secret's a smoke detector. You don't smash it unless you prefer fire to warning.
The shard's surface shimmered, catching the lamplight and bending it into thin ribbons across the ceiling. Jude watched tiny motes of dust float through those ribbons, momentarily illuminated like sparks before they disintegrated in shadow.
Does it do that often? Refract light like a prism?
Yes, but only at certain sidereal angles, as if following a timetable no human wrote.
Have you tried decoding the pattern?
We fed the reflections to a deep learning array. It answered with a lullaby instead of data.
A lullaby.
Rockabye baby on the carbon dioxide winds. Then the array shut itself down for a month.
That's unsettling.
Unsettling is Tuesday. Wednesday is when the AI starts dreaming in languages we never taught it.
Care to explain?
Last Sol, one maintenance drone scrawled spiral glyphs on the hab roof using condensed ice crystals, glyphs we later matched to the shard's grooves. Self-organizing coincidence or cosmic déjà vu? Pick your poison.
What's your poison, Elon?
Curiosity laced with dread. Every answer births 3 more questions.
Like rabbits in 1/3 gravity.
Exactly, though the rabbits would probably float away before breeding.
Still, you remain the optimist who charted this path.
Optimism is a functional hallucination. Turn it off, and you crash into reality too fast.
How do you keep it on?
By acknowledging its opposite. I keep a list of worst-case scenarios in my pocket. Reading them is like inoculation, small dose of terror to boost the immune system of hope.
Jude tilted his head, tempted to ask for the list. Instead, he took a sip of the thick espresso, tasting a metallic tang that reminded him of rusty playground swings on humid earth as in afternoons. A hush fell, not silence, but the pregnant pause before a revelation decides whether it wants to be spoken.
You ever think about just going back?
Earth feels like trying to fit back into childhood clothes. The nostalgia chafes.
Yet you keep photographs, children, launches, the first Tesla Roadster in orbit.
Tokens, not tethers. When solitude glares, tokens negotiate a truce.
And when solitude whispers?
Then I listen. You'd be surprised how many secrets travel on quiet frequencies.
Is the shard whispering now?
It hums, a frequency just below human hearing, like a doorbell nobody admits installing.
What if you open that door?
Maybe we already have. Maybe the moment we touched Martian soil, the hinges creaked and something on the other side inhaled.
Sounds dramatic.
Mars is drama written in basalt and bone?
Bone?
Colonists' bones lighten here. Calcium leaches into the blood. People walk like puppets, light, graceful, but fragile. Makes you wonder if evolution rewrites protection as vulnerability.
That fragility scares you.
It reminds me we're temporary annotations in a very long book.
And yet you keep writing.
Because blank pages are worse. If the frontier writes back, I'd rather hand it a completed chapter than a shopping list of regrets.
A sudden tremor, barely measurable, rippled through the floor. Warning lights blinked once, then stilled. Far off, the station loudspeaker coughed. Minor crustal flexion event. Maintain normal operations. Elon glanced upward as though listening for aftershocks, then returned his focus to Jude with renewed intensity.
How many people know the full truth about these finds?
Full truth, 0, partial truths, maybe 24. I'm one of them, and I'm still guessing.
What keeps you from unveiling everything?
The colony needs narrative stability. Shake foundations too violently, and the dome isn't what collapses. It's morale.
Yet breakthroughs thrive on upheaval.
Yes, but breakthroughs are scalpel cuts, not sledgehammer swings.
In that analogy, am I the scalpel?
No, Jude, you're the anesthetic. You numb the fear so we can cut deeper.
Comforting.
Comfort is relative. On Mars, a comfortable bed is any surface that doesn't remind you of your own heartbeat rattling the bunk.
So the human condition here is survival plus cosmic mystery.
Add gallows humor, subtract breathable air, multiply by unresolved trauma. That's the equation.
Elegantly grim.
Grim is elegant when you lacquer it with purpose.
A small maintenance crabbot scuttled between their boots, using magnetic claws to drag a bundle of fiber optic cables. Its painted, smiley face decal had chipped into a lopsided grin, exposing bare alloy. It paused, emitted a cheerful click in greeting, then zipped away, leaving a sparkling filament of dust dancing in its wake.
How many of those little gremlins keep this place from imploding?
More than people. Robots don't argue over whose chore it is to scrape ice off solar panels.
But they do sing Britney in 8-bit.
Exactly. Every genius has a quirk.
Speaking of quirks, why the obsession with espresso when water is rationed?
Espresso's pressure brewing process doubles as CO2 containment. Every shot pulled saves a breath we'd lose to venting.
Practical and poetic.
Science is just poetry that pays rent.
The espresso machine whistled, spewing a final puff of steam that curled into the air like a question mark fading into ellipsis. Outside, twilight seeded the horizon to a pale lavender afterglow, and Phobos crawled overhead, tiny, jagged, and unsettlingly swift.
Where does hope live on Mars, Elon?
In the lag time of a radio signal leaving here for Earth, those 11 minutes where uncertainty is all we own, and anything is still possible.
And fear?
In the echo that returns when Earth answers, sometimes optimism doesn't survive round-trip transmission.
Yet you keep transmitting.
Hope is a frequency. Tune it too low and you only hear static.
What if the frontier's reply isn't static but speech?
Then we translate, adapt, and maybe apologize.
For what?
For assuming the universe was auditioning for us rather than we for it.
The shard's coils powered down for maintenance, allowing it to settle onto a cushioned cradle. It made no sound, yet the air felt heavier, as though the artifact's silence was denser than words. Jude and Elon locked eyes, two silhouettes against the dim glow of a world that refused to yield simple answers. A klaxon warbled somewhere deep in the infrastructure of Sol Station Ares, then subsided into a polite chime, as if an embarrassed throat clear. The overhead lights recalibrated to a cooler spectrum, bathing the room in glacial blue. Musk tapped a wrist pad. "Power shave," he muttered. Jude followed as Elon rose, helmet slung casually at his side, and the two crossed a narrow corridor into a cylindrical lift. The floor vibrated with the murmur of maglev coils. Translucent walls offered a slice-by-slice X-ray of the colony on their descent, tiers of algae bioreactors glowing jade, rows of pressurized sleeping pods, a workshop where torso-less maintenance androids practiced assembling their own legs. Somewhere below waited the geothermal spine, where heat exchangers sang like oversized violins. The lift halted at deck -4, Hydrosymbiosis Bay. Doors side open, releasing a scent equal parts chlorophyll and machine oil.
New wing?
Experimental. Hydroponics married to microbial 3D printing. We call it the salad forge.
Ambitious name for lettuce.
When water is line item gold, lettuce is a luxury sedan.
So you're growing Ferraris in vegetable form.
And test driving them with vinaigrettes.
They stepped onto a catwalk suspended above vivid tiers of leafy greens. Each trough was served by cobweb-thin capillaries pulsing fluorescent nutrient broth. Micro-drones, nicknamed buzzards by colonists, hovered sampling moisture and humming improvised jazz scales that the onboard composer AI insisted optimized plant growth. Nearly every surface wore handwritten graffiti, equations, doodles of Martian tumbleweeds, jokes like, may contain nuts, actually just contains existential dread. Jude leaned over the rail. Gravity's gentleness meant center of mass felt treacherously vague.
Low-G vertigo ever go away?
You learn to enjoy the sense that falling and floating are synonyms.
Practical philosophy.
On Mars, philosophy is practical, or dead weight.
Speaking of weights, how does the colony balance optimism with classified artifacts?
Through carefully rationed ignorance, we drip knowledge like intravenous epiphany, enough to nourish, not enough to drown.
But ignorance leaks, humans gossip, bots glitch.
Hence the jokes, the jazz drones, the espresso. Distraction is a pressure valve.
A buzzard halted mid-air, pivoted, and projected a hologram of a tiny goldfish wearing an astronaut helmet. Text scrolled beneath. Hydration levels 0.7% above target. Recommend tiny applause. It issued a synthetic golf clap, then zipped away. Jude grinned in spite of himself.
Your bots have better comedic timing than some late-night hosts back home.
Comedy uploads easier than ethics modules.
Let's test both. Your ethics, why shelter Earth from Mars's biggest discovery?
Because revelation without scaffolding risks tearing muscle from bone. Imagine telling a toddler that gravity occasionally shuts off.
Exciting until the furniture levitates.
Exactly. We need cultural seatbelts.
And your chief safety engineer?
I'm the guy who hands out airbags, then wonders if he inflated them backwards.
They reached a circular landing where a single chair, welded from scrapped launch gantry, overlooked a nutrient lagoon. Luminescent bacteria painted shifting constellations across the water's surface. Elon sat, Jude remained standing, hands on railing, eyes tracing the bioluminescent glyphs that coalesced into shapes, dissolved, and reformed.
Beautiful.
They're programmed to mimic electromagnetic readings from the shard upstairs. Art posing as telemetry.
So the relic writes water poems now.
Either that, or the lagoon's writing fan fiction about the relic.
Frontier feedback loop.
That's Mars, an echo chamber where even silence develops opinions.
Speaking of opinions, back on Earth you're still labeled everything from prophet to Bond villain. How does that filter through 11-minute delays?
Like postage from a parallel universe, praise arrives salted with irrelevance. Criticism lands already time-dilated into archaeology.
Does the cult of Musk still exist here?
Shrunk down to a footnote. Hard to maintain a cult when everyone has seen you chasing runaway air filters and bunny slippers.
A soft clunk announced an incoming data capsule. A pneumatic tube spat a clear canister onto a bench. Inside, a rolled biopolymer scroll bearing Earth's seal. Elon unspooled it. Holographic text blossomed.
News?
Council request. They want assurance our colony governance aligns with Earth's post-scarcity charter.
Translation. They fear Mars is a gated community for geniuses.
We're more like a pothole filled with stubborn dreamers.
Still. Optics matter.
Optics always matter. That's why most telescopes double as mirrors.
Jude caught the metaphor. Knew swimming safely clear of Vader's reflection. He nodded, then changed tack.
Neuralink aftermath. People back home speak of mind-splitting breakthroughs. Alzheimer's reversed. Calligraphy taught in dreams.
We gave humanity a second cortex. Problem is, second brains develop second thoughts.
Regrets?
When you let people converse with their future selves in lucid simulations, some never want to wake. We're treating nostalgia addiction like a neurological flu.
Solutions?
Mandatory sunrise sessions, simulated dawn across sensory implants, reminds patients that time still flows forward.
Sunrise therapy on Earth. Here you barely get sunsets.
We craft them. Projector arrays on the dome blend wavelengths so colonists can argue about whether the sky looks like mango or blood orange.
Artisanal twilight.
If you're going to survive on a planet that buries warmth, you might as well paint with it.
An automated harvester arm glided underneath, snipping arugula and depositing it into a hovering crate. Labels flashed. Caloric credit 17.8. Flavor index, peppery optimism. Jude laughed.
Peppery optimism. Think it pairs with cosmic dread?
Everything pairs with cosmic dread if you drizzle enough olive oil.
There's olive oil on Mars?
Genetically compact olive trees, bonsai groves in pressurized closets. First harvest tasted like sunburn and nostalgia.
I'd pay for that tasting menu.
You already are. Interview costs, 1 bite of existential salad.
Jude plucked an arugula leaf, tasted. The flavor punched sharp, then lingered sweet like lightning followed by rain.
Not bad for a bonsai apocalypse.
Apocalypse lends minerals.
Switching gears, family. Your kids, some on Earth, some here. How does a father stretch across planets?
Through delayed jokes, I record puns. By the time they arrive, the punchline is vintage. Dad humor aged in cosmic oak.
Do they laugh?
They eye roll so hard I feel it across the void.
Any of them inherit the secrecy gene?
One manages colony rumor control. Another hacked the salad drones to spell memes in lettuce rows. Subversion is hereditary.
The bioluminescent lagoon shimmered brighter. Patterns coalesced into recursive spirals. Elon's gaze lingered, a cipher deciphering itself.
It's drawing shapes I don't recognize. Coordinates?
More like temperaments. The lagoon is synesthetic. It turns vibration into geometry.
Whose vibration? Ours?
Maybe ours. Maybe the shards. Maybe the planet having a private joke.
A single droplet leapt upward, hovered too long for physics, then splashed down, leaving a luminous ring.
That shouldn't be possible. Does that happen on a schedule?
Only when Phobos occludes the solar array. Shadow triggers a resonance in the shard's magnetic containment. We clock it, but the math refuses to stay still.
Meaning?
Meaning the shard behaves like a question mark that moves its dot.
Do you ever consider destroying it?
Tempting, but you don't burn books just because they're written in unfamiliar grammar.
What if the grammar writes back a threat?
Then we upgrade our vocabulary, or learn to shut up.
You afraid it's a threat?
I'm afraid it's a tutorial for technology we can't yet measure, let alone survive.
A hiss signaled the lift's return. They boarded, ascending toward the artifact lab. On the ride, the walls projected real-time telemetry. Solar efficiency up 3%, oxygen reserves stable, colony morale 82%. With a note. Morale calculation excludes personnel listening to the 3 a.m. bot concert.
Morale algorithm seems cheerful.
Because we bribed it with updated emoticons.
Bribing algorithms, there's a headline.
We call it placating the oracle. Keeps it from predicting catastrophes before breakfast.
The elevator opened on the observation deck. Here, hard vacuum lay mere centimeters beyond the viewports. A transparent walkway arched over cavernous space where excavation rigs dug into subsurface ice. Ice dust glittered in floodlights. A private aurora trapped indoors. In the center, the shard sat on an isolation dais, coils humming faint lullabies of magnetism.
Does staring at it ever stop feeling like trespassing?
It starts feeling like negotiation. You give it attention, hope it returns context.
And does it?
Once it emitted a microburst of structured neutrinos, encoded into prime numbers shaped like constellations nobody on Earth has charted.
Message?
Or mirror neuron. Could be the shard trying to understand our curiosity.
So curiosity rubs off.
Curiosity is viral. The shard might be infected with us.
A station announcement crackled. Crust quiver event complete. No integrity loss. Complimentary anxiety tablets available at medbay. Jude chuckled. Elon did not.
How do you personally metabolize anxiety?
I schedule it. 1600 hours, review power grids. 1700, panicked pacing. 1800, dinner.
Efficient.
Efficiency is therapy disguised as spreadsheets.
What worries you at 1700 these days?
That we're birthing a posthuman species without telling the midwife.
Terraforming the soul.
Or eroding it if we're careless. Neural implants, CRISPR lungs, AI co-parenting. Mars is a forge, but forging involves melting.
Melt too much, you lose the mold.
Exactly. Humanity's shape is not guaranteed.
A maintenance tech cycled through, saluted, and handed Elon a data pad. He scanned it, frowned, dismissed the tech.
Bad news?
Long-range telescope caught a new dust storm. 40,000-kilometer front, tall as Olympus Mons. We'll ride it out, but solar yield plummets.
Contingency?
We dim non-essential sectors. Ask the colony to swap luxuries for candlelight.
How do colonists take voluntary darkness?
They host karaoke marathons. Last storm, the chief botanist sang a 6-hour medley. Off-key in 2 languages, 3 planetary time zones.
Darkness breeding chorus?
Noise kills fear. Same reason wolves howl.
What do you sing?
I recite rocket equations in hexameter. Puts people to sleep. Free sedative.
Outside the viewport, streaks of dust already began tracing faint snakes across the horizon. Jude watched, reflecting on Earth's storms. Weather measured in seconds, not souls.
Earth's doing better, you said. Climate reversal, resource optimization, yet storms there still frighten toddlers. Here storms erase sunlight for days.
We raise toddlers on simulated storms. AR goggles that teach them awe without panic. We don't hide the danger. We choreograph it.
Teaching courage by puppet mastering the sky.
Bravery is muscle memory. Practice at 0.38 grams, and you'll flex it at 1 gram.
But what about the shard? Courage practice enough?
Maybe courage is the price of entry. Whatever intelligence etched that relic might value persistence over pedigree.
So our gym membership is paid in stubbornness.
And curiosity compound interest.
Lights dimmed. An intercom voice announced power conservation mode.
Every time the lights fade, I remember classrooms back on Earth. Fire drill hush, fluorescent flicker.
On Mars, we rehearse for dust instead of flame.
Different element, same instinct. Protect the oxygen.
And protect the stories. Power down the wrong servers and half our colony journals vanish.
Do you back them up on Earth?
Latency makes real-time mirrors impossible. We keep duplicate drives buried in permafrost. Cold archives for warm memories.
Overhead, a relay clicked. The floor plates sighed as non-critical circuits surrendered their wattage to the storm.
So nostalgia is literally frozen here.
Yes, ice as scrapbook.
The shard's coils glowed sapphire, bathing the room in surreal twilight. Elon and Jude stood amid floating dust motes that sparkled like paused fireworks.
You ever imagine leaving the shard unshielded? Letting it converse directly with the colony?
I imagine headlines, Mars sing-along ends in existential hangover.
Worth it?
Maybe, but you open cage doors carefully when the occupant species is unknown.
Could be benevolent.
Could be bored.
Boredom can be lethal.
Ask any teenager with a jetpack prototype.
A gentle vibration pulsed through the deck as turbines ramped. Emergency ambience, soft viola chords, floated from speakers. Psychological studies proved strings calmed heart rates during blackout drills. Jude noted how Elon's shoulders squared, as if wearing invisible epaulets of responsibility.
Do you miss the crush of Earth gravity?
I miss friction, real friction. Here, arguments dissolve too fast. You push, you drift. On Earth, conflict anchored you to consequence.
Mars seems full of consequence.
Consequences without traction feel surreal, like slapping water. You make a splash, but nothing bruises.
Maybe the shard will bruise reality for you.
Careful what you wish for. Bruises can bloom into fractures.
In the half-light, the shard's surface rippled, as though oil meeting rainfall, then quieted. Both men stared.
Did it just respond?
Maybe to the storm, or to us discussing storms. Hard to tell cause from coincidence in a universe that likes puns.
Cosmic punster.
If creation is a joke, it's one we haven't learned the punchline to yet.
And we can't walk out of the comedy club.
Not without paying the 2-drink minimum of mortality.
A faint melodic chirp emanated from Jude's wrist. Earth update. Aurora Australis visible as far north as Brisbane. A Neuralink concerto scheduled for the Venus Cloud City Orchestra. Earth stockpiles of helium-3 at record high. The gap between planets measured now in culture, not kilometers.
Earth sends postcards of progress.
We send them red dust and philosophical migraines.
Fair trade?
Depends which side of the migraine you're on.
The storm's first fine grains spattered against the outer dome, a patter like dry rice tossed on metal. Overhead lights pulsed once, a polite bow, then returned to half-lumen. Jude inhaled recycled air seasoned with ozone, feeling its crisp vigilance.
If humanity asked you for one piece of advice tonight, what would it be?
Stretch your definitions. Of success, of failure, of neighbor. If the frontier looks back, greet it with questions, not weapons.
And if it answers with silence?
Silence is space between syllables. Interpret it musically.
That's poetic.
Poetry is just engineering with metaphors instead of rivets.
A final shutter signaled full dust storm lock-in. Automated shutters slid over certain windows, leaving the shard's cobalt glow as primary illumination. The relic thrummed, a sound too low for ears, registered only in teeth and memory. Elon considered it, then spoke barely above a whisper, though his words carried.
History left us puzzles because it trusted curiosity more than caution. Our job is to prove that trust wasn't misplaced.
Jude tapped his recorder off, not to end the session, but to honor the hush that followed. Outside, scarlet dust erased the horizon. Inside, 2 men and an inscrutable shard inhabited a small bubble of breath and wonder, suspended between secrecy and sunrise. The storm curled around Sol Station Aries with the hush of an immense red ocean. Wind-driven dust brushed the dome in waves, then paused, then resumed, as though Mars itself were thinking aloud. Emergency illumination glowed amber, starved, yet steadfast. Jude and Elon stood in the observation gangway, shoulders nearly touching, the shard's muted cobalt light pulsing behind them like a distant heartbeat.
It's strange to think all of this began with tweets, startups, a few audacious launch videos on shaky live streams.
Strange and predictable. Humanity's future was always going to sprout from trivial seeds. We underestimate how often history starts as a meme.
When you look back at the 21st century so far, what markers stand tallest for you?
We mapped the human genome and then rewrote its punctuation. We dragged electricity off coal's back and taught it to sip sunlight. We taught cars to daydream in traffic, and we flung private rockets like paper airplanes toward vacuum. We did all that while arguing online about tacos versus pizza.
And the arguments mattered.
Yes, because each argument proved we still cared enough to fight for a better flavor of tomorrow.
Some people say progress is an illusion, just new toys on an old playground.
Maybe, but illusions that extend lifespan, erase diseases, connect one mind to another across oceans, that's a theater worth the ticket price.
Still, we left Earth scarred.
Scars are the body's autobiography, pain written in tissue. Earth scars remind us indulgence costs interest.
Do you believe humanity has paid enough?
Not yet, but we've stopped pretending the invoice won't arrive.
The shard's glow dimmed as auxiliary power cycled. Dust outside swept past the viewport in rusty streaks, like embers in a gale slowed by low gravity.
Picture the last day of the 21st century. What do you hope humanity looks like?
I hope by then we've learned to measure wealth in planetary health, not quarterly margins. I hope border checkpoints have been replaced by collaborative research hubs. I hope a child born in Lagos, Lima, or Lhasa has the same chance to upload curiosity into the stars.
Ambitious.
Survival demands ambition. Complacency was a luxury budgeted only for stable epochs. This isn't one.
What about Mars?
A thriving sibling civilization, not a trophy resort. Cities carved inside lava tubes glowing with gardens. Schools where kids learn orbital mechanics before algebra. Evenings where elders tell stories beneath transparent ceilings, teaching constellations no Earth sky ever knew.
And the shard?
Displayed in a public forum, not a vault. A reminder that humility expands faster than any universe we chart.
Do you hope it will speak plainly by then?
I hope we will have learned the language of its silence.
Across the dome, electric violins piped a soft nocturne, software's gift against storm claustrophobia. The notes drifted like snowflakes in reverse.
You sound confident humanity can evolve beyond old instincts.
Confidence is oxygen. Without it, every solution suffocates in cynicism. But confidence must braid with accountability.
Some claim accountability slows innovation.
Accountability is innovation's steering wheel. Speed without steering is just collision.
If you could send one message back to your younger self in that first cramped SpaceX hangar, what would it be?
Don't mistake loudness for clarity. Let the rocket speak. Your ego can stay on the launch pad.
And to the child staring at the night sky tonight?
Keep staring. The sky is not a ceiling. It's an invitation. Accept it and bring friends.
Thunderless vibrations thumped overhead, dust-laden and electric.
That pulse feels like a second heartbeat under the station.
Mars reminding us whose rhythm rules.
Do you ever wish we could mute the planet, just for a minute of stillness?
Stillness is a myth. Even silence contains frequencies beneath hearing.
Earth's quiet used to calm me. Here the quiet feels active, predatory.
Predatory or parental, depends whether you fear lessons.
Static crackled through the comm grid, then dissolved into a low chime, system ready or perhaps wary. The shard flashed, then settled. Jude checked his recorder. Power still at 34%.
Does fear still visit you?
Every dawn. Fear is the planet's tax on hope. I pay it, then calculate how much hope I can reinvest.
What's your dividend of hope tonight?
That somewhere in this storm another colonist is laughing at a bad joke. Laughter means the human experiment remains solvent.
And if laughter stops?
Then it's time for new jokes or new experimenters?
From the far end of the gangway, a maintenance drone pinged. External visibility approaching null. Advise poetic reflection or sleep. Jude laughed softly.
The AI recommends poetry.
It's learning priorities.
Got any lines?
Just one. We were born of starlight. Our task is to make the darkness sing.
That'll echo.
Echoes are the universe's applause.
Then what's the standing ovation?
When future civilizations dig up our failures and choose to keep living anyway.
A mercy more profound than applause.
Mercy is applause translated into action.
Hard to measure.
So is gravity until you fall.
A distant boom rolled through the dome. Storm thunder meeting structure. followed by a hush so complete it seemed to enlarge the room. They turned toward the viewport. Beyond the glass, red dusk had vanished into a swirling void. Yet in the storm's core, faint auroral bands shimmered, electric green bruising through crimson, as though Mars had borrowed Earth's northern lights for a moment of mutual recognition.
Look at that.
Even storms know how to paint.
Makes you wonder who taught them.
Perhaps the same artist who etched prime numbers into neutrinos.
Or the same children who will plant olive groves in lava tubes.
Yes, history is a relay baton passed between strangers who will never meet. We sprint, then trust.
The aurora brightened once, briefly illuminating Elon's face in verdant halo, then faded. The shard answered with a single resonant pulse, felt more than heard, like a gong acknowledging an unseen ritual.
Did you feel that?
A heartbeat bigger than ours.
Sign of approval?
Or a reminder, the test continues.
Silence settled, deep and reverent. Jude ended the recording, but words still drifted unspoken between them. Questions too vast for circuitry, answers too tender for immediate air. Outside, the storm surged on, yet inside the observation deck, two figures stood unwavering. One host, one visionary, sharing a pocket of fragile light against an ancient, restless planet. And somewhere between the dust's roar and the aurora's hush, listeners across solar distances would later find themselves pausing, breath held, hearts rewired, not by engines or algorithms, but by the simple, staggering truth that humanity's greatest frontier was never Mars or any shard of alien stone, but the untamed possibility within its own collective soul.